Okay, let me check my audio. Perfect. Looks like we are in business. Let me check my audio there. All right. It's working. All right. So cool. So today we're analyzing the fourth zip code out of the 5 zip codes we've been looking at for Detroit. And this is in 48224. Couple of items for us to pay attention to is what are we doing? We are looking at some zip codes. And for those of you that have not seen this, we have a podcast called Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing. And I got these 5 zip codes from our guy, Stuart Hicks. He runs a Section 8 placement company in Detroit. And he will also help you screen the tenants, help you place the tenants. He also can provide inspection services and also property management. So I got all of these. Hey, Brandon, how you doing, man? Good to see you, buddy. And he provided all these zip codes and the rent assumptions from him. And so you really want someone with some great experience that understands exactly how to screen your tenants and also how to work with all the different housing authorities in Detroit. So for Detroit, just for folks that are joining for today, typically we see 10% or 8% for property management. In Detroit, it's slightly higher at 12% for a property manager based on some of the quotes that I've gotten. It is a 10% CapEx, which is what we've been using, but I also estimate my vacancy to be a little bit higher at 5%, just given how cold it is sometimes in Detroit. So let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at 48224. 48224 is a little bit more further east in Detroit. You can see that downtown Detroit is kind of right here. I think the football stadium's over there. But moving over to the right-hand side, that's where we are today. I just picked a couple of properties. This property was a little bit more expensive, but it was a multifamily, which means that this is a duplex. And let's look at the condition. It's newly painted, refinish, hardwood floors, new carpeting in the bedroom. So we don't need to replace the carpet. So we can save a little bit of money on a rehab there. New cabinets, brand new roof. So I usually put in $1,500 for the roof, but if it's a brand new roof, we'll verify that on inspection, but that should probably be okay. The first floor's main room is large walk-in closet. Second floor has a front and back balconies. There's balconies, but just make sure that those balconies are up to code. 2-car detached garage has automatic opener. The garage door, large basement with storage. So you can always put in a coin-operated laundry down there. So that should make your property a little bit more attractive, especially if you can fit laundry into your apartment. Okay, that's cool. Let's look at the property. That's a pretty well renovated bathroom. They got the subway tiles there. Those are pretty common for investor or flipper grade. For the most part, cosmetically, this property looks pretty good. I think I only see one apartment, so I'm not sure if there is already a tenant in there, but that's probably something that we want to verify on this piece. So let's look at the street. So, my favorite. So whenever you guys see speed bumps, again, if you saw the live yesterday, speed bumps are a good item to have because I've heard it from other investors. I cannot verify this, but speed bumps in Detroit makes the neighborhood a little bit safer because it makes it harder for the cars to get away from the cops. I don't know how true that is, but it kind of makes sense when I think about it out loud. So I'm just doing a quick drive-by in this area. I like that there's speed bumps there, like I said earlier. I'm just trying to make sure that there isn't like a big bomb that blew up in the neighborhood. Sometimes when you drive to Detroit, you can typically see those items. But for the most part, this area doesn't look bad at all. This area doesn't look bad. All right, let's verify it on tophap.com now. TOP. Whoops. Brandon, good to know that you've been looking at these areas, man. I'm glad this information is valuable. But I got to do disclaimer. It's not investment advice. All right. 5936. So going through the top half. Neighborhood, Crime Index 117. All right, still below the 120 that I brought another property in. Sense to that. That's a community's part. Safe driving. Safe driving. That's right, man. Safe driving and crime prevention. Who knew that speed bumps would make and deter crime? All right, so we have top hat 117. That's good. The next thing we want to do is get the FMR. So if you Google HUD FMR, HUD FMR, you can look up the FY 2024 FMR. This was in Michigan. So we're going to go to MI, and then this is in Wayne County. For those of you that don't know how we got there, you just simply do control find on county right here, and you'll be to find that it is in Wayne County. Now I'm going to scroll up here and make sure I get the property tax numbers. Oh, that's a really high property tax number. I wonder why. That seems a lot higher than what we've seen. Maybe it's just a certain area, but we're going to use that assumption for now, and unless anything indicates otherwise, we'll take that at face value for now at 500. 48224. So 48224. Boom. Now we have the rents, the FMR, the fair market rents by bedroom, by zip code. I'm going to take this 1200 number because this is a duplex and this is the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom at 1200. All right, I'm going to note that down in my Excel file right now. 48224, 48224. This is for a 2-bedroom. And this is at $1,200. Delete the rest of that. All right. Then I'm going to get the market rents. I'm going to go to affordablehousing.com, go to the market rent estimator, come over here and figure out whether or not the market rent here for a 2-bedroom, what that is. So once you kind of click this, for a 2-bedroom, you'll see that for 25 units within a 0.67 mile radius, the market rent is $1,085. So I feel pretty good about the $1,085 number because that is underneath the FMR of 1,200. And I care about the FMR whenever comparing to the market rent because I am wary of the rent reasonableness test. And the rent reasonableness test simply means that when you have a FMR that is higher than your market rent, so right, 1,200 on the HUD website, and compare that to 1,085 here, you can see that the market rent is lower. And you cannot charge more rent to a family simply because they are a voucher holder for obvious reasons. So I'm going to use 1,085 as my per unit count for this property. So I'm going to go 1,085 times 2 on it. All right. So now we're good. We verified the property. We did a street view. We did the HUD FMR to get the fair market rents. We checked for the market rents to grab the market rents, and we got the crime score from tophap.com. We talked a little bit about all the assumptions right now. And it's kind of good that the 2-bedroom range is right within the range that Stu told me about, between $950 to $1,295. So I'm very, very comfortable at $1,085 since it's kind of smack right in the middle. We're using 12% property management, 10% CapEx, and 5% vacancy. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share the screen now. Over here. And let's underwrite this deal together. So we have 149,900, and this property is 199,900. Update that. What's my renovation furniture? So this property looks like it's in pretty good shape. I did not see photos of the other unit. Notice that they only shared pictures of one side of the unit. So I'm going to be a little wary. I'm going to put aside some money to paint the other unit. So I'm going to do equals 1318, which is total square feet, and I'm going to divide that by 2. I don't know if this is right. I'm simply guessing, but again, the goal of this process is to verify whether or not this is even worth our time to investigate further. Okay. I'm not doing any additional flooring here. I'm assuming the flooring and the carpeting is all up to code and updated because it was said so in the description, unless the realtor is lying. I don't have to replace any of the water heater. I'm going to put aside some money for termites just in case because it sounds too good of a property to be true. So I got $4,000 of rehab. All right. Now, as I go down here, I'm going to change my down payment to 25% down, and this is going to be an 8.5% interest rate, assuming I'm getting a DSCR rate at 8.5%. Okay. My monthly income rent right now is equals to 1085 times 2 because this is a duplex, and we're using the market rents that we recorded earlier, right? The FMR is 1200, and then you have the right here, the 2-bedroom market rent that I documented within a 0.67 mile radius. Okay, that's how I got to 1085. So I'm gonna use my monthly rental rent, monthly income rent. Excuse me. I've been talking a lot on the phone today. 2,170. My monthly property tax is gonna be $500, according to Redfin. You remember correctly. And my insurance is gonna be 87. So I'm gonna do that. Equals 87 times 1.3. Got 10% for my maintenance, 12% for property, and 5% for the vacancy. And this is not a deal at 25% down, even though my rehab is only $4,700. And that's because right now, assuming a rent of 2,170, I'm negative cash flow 181. My cash and cash return is negative 3.7. And this was assuming a purchase price of $199,900. My rehab is 4,172. Seller finance, well, this is down payments, 25% down, 8.5% interest rate. Well, next thing I want to do is, if we were to go through all these different scenarios similar to how we did yesterday, the first thing I want to do is I want to modify my purchase price. What will make this a deal in order to achieve a 15% return? How about if I lower this to 150, 100? Okay. If I bought this property at $100,000, everything else holding constant at 4,172, 25% down, 8.5% interest rate, my cash flow now will be 394, and my cash and cash returns 14.9. Make sense, everybody? All right. Next scenario we want to do. Well, what if I really screwed up on the rent and I can really get $1,200 in rent on this property? Well, now my rent will be 1,200 times 2. Well, what's my return now on what am I willing to pay for the property if I'm able to get $2,400 in rent total per month? 150, no, 125, 120, 115. Okay, 118. There we go. So if I messed up on the rents and I'm actually able to get $2,400 in rent, I would cash flow 458 and make my 15% return cash on cash, assuming I can buy this property at $118. So hopefully that kind of stands out for our view guys. Like, hey, if I am wrong on my rental rate assumptions, how much more am I willing to pay for this property? And this is how you get to 118. If my rental assumption is 2,170, I would pay $100,000. If my rental assumption is 2,400, then I'd be willing to pay 118. Again, this is purely based on 25% down, 8.5% interest rate. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to see whether or not this property is owned free and clear to see if there is a creative finance option. And I'm going to lower the rent back down to 2,170 so I can play around with these scenarios correctly. And let me pull over PropStream right now. And PropStream is how I, 5936, look up whether or not there is an existing loan that's in place to see whether or not I can assume that the property is owned free and clear. So when you go to PropStream, you plug in the address, you go to the right-hand side and click this detail button, and you can see that there's a mortgage. Oh, there is a mortgage. Okay, so this is a little different. All right, let's do it. Let's analyze the sub to. So this is a subject to. Brandon, you see the total entry is $36,000. How can I get the $36,000? There's a couple options, Brandon. One is you can either negotiate a lower down payment if the seller actually doesn't own the entire property, or you can get a private money lender to kind of come in and be sort of the second position. You can borrow from the private money lender at 8%, 10%, 12%, or you give up equity in the property. That's another way for you to go about it. We call those private money partners. So you can give equity portion of the deal in exchange for your sweat equity, which could be you found a team, which I technically found for you. So you just leverage what I've done so far. Or what else can you do? You can manage the entire project for sweat equity. You can oversee, you can screen attendance. You can be the day-to-day interaction or overseer of the property manager, or also just become like the asset manager. So this is good. I'm glad I got an example for you guys because this is a good loan that's in place. And this loan was for $140,000, 249 at 5.22% interest rate for 360 months. Okay. This loan is going to be important for our calculation, meaning if I'm taking over subject to loan, what is my remaining balance, right? So let's kind of plug this in the calculator. So let's plug it in. So if you go to the top section right here, the sub 2 loan is 140,249, 5.22% return. The start date for this loan was 9/26/2022. Okay. All right. So now I need to figure out what my equity portion is. So let's change this purchase price back to the purchase price, which is $199,900. So $199,900. All right. So what's my seller finance note in this scenario? You get your seller finance note by subtracting the asking price minus whatever down payment you're giving seller minus whatever the principal balance of this loan you're taking over is subject to, and that equates to a $9,600 9676 return. So I need to make this deal a deal by getting this cash and cash hold up to 15%. So my seller finance portion now is what? I'm asking the seller to finance their equity portion to me. And at 25% down, I'm still giving them 50 grand, but I'm telling them to finance the other $9,600. That's not going to happen because I'm not going to even offer those terms because I'm not going to be able to get my 15% cash and cash return. So that's not even an option I want to bring up. So if I lower this to a 0% down payment and I don't give anything to the seller, I'm having a seller finance me $59,000. Man, this is still not a deal. Why? Because there is a 5.22% interest rate here. So unfortunately, this is not a deal because even if I get the seller to not take a down payment, I take over the loan sub 2, I still paid the seller 0% interest rate on the equity portion. I'm only making 4.4%. Unless my rent is off. Okay, well, hold on. Well, if my rent, I guess the only way it will work is what if I can get, so at 2170, I'm at 4.38%. How about if I get to 2300? 2250. Yeah, see how sensitive it is? So the only way I can make this work, well, let me put in 10%. Yeah, so it doesn't work. 5%? Yeah. That's tough. I can't imagine a seller willing to take out 5%. So maybe this could work. So if for some reason I'm able to get $2,400 rent, which I don't think is possible, but this would be the only way it would work, is if you are able to cash flow $229. That's a 14.4%. At least that's a little bit closer to 15. Excuse me. But I'm able to pay $199,900 to the seller. My rehab is still 4,173. But in this scenario, I'm making a 5% down payment, and my interest rate here on the sub 2 loan, not sub 2 loan, the equity portion of this seller finance portion is 0%. I'm still taking over the loan, underlying loan subject to existing financing, which means I'm taking over the payments for this underlying loan. So, hey, MJ, good to hear from you. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate that. So, to me, this is not a deal unless I get $2,400. So for me, that's a little bit right on the line. I don't love it. The only other way I can see this becoming a deal is what if my property taxes was way too high at $500? Maybe it should have been lower at $300, but for some reason that's what came up on Redfin. And I don't know why this particular zip code, but the property taxes seems a little bit higher than what I thought I would normally see around here. Let me see. I can just pick up another property. 79 grand. What is this one going for? What's the property taxes? 120. See, it's a lot lower. It should be like closer to 300. So maybe there's something going on with that street or a multifamily property. I have no idea what's going on, but that would be the other way you could make this a deal. If that was 120, let's say this was only 300. If the property tax was 300 and I go back to 2170, yeah, I would be willing to pay. Yeah. That would be the only other way it would work. If my property taxes, let me change the scenario. Prop taxes / month. All of these were $500 a month. But if I turn my property tax to $300 a month, because for some reason I think it's overestimated, and I'm able to pay 5% down at 0% interest rate, then it would be a deal. F4173, and my cash flow per month is 261, and my cash to cash return here is 16.4. So hopefully this helps you guys kind of determine all these scenarios. The only way this would be a deal at 2170 rents would be if the property taxes was completely wrong. I mean, we could look up the property tax records and stuff like that, but for me, it's a little too tight. If I need everything to kind of go my way to make this a deal, then it's not really a deal. But it wouldn't cash flow if you just gave them a few $1,000s. Well, Brandon, you asked it wouldn't cash flow if you just gave them a few thousand and took over the loan. Well, in this area, you would give them 5% down, so you give them $10,000, right? But then here, you still have a loan that's due to the seller in 10 years. So it will cash flow in this scenario. Is that what you're asking, Brandon? And for those of you that are watching on Instagram, feel free to always jump onto YouTube for the full screen version. Hey, Brandon, just DM me if you have any more questions. I'm interested to hear what you're talking about because I want to make sure I'm answering your questions. Because I do this for you guys. I don't really do it for anybody else. So ask me any questions that you guys want, because this is all for the community, and this is why we analyze deals every single day. Well, I mean, drop the purchase price. Well, the thing is, if you drop the purchase price, you might not be able to get the creative terms, because usually a seller that goes for a seller finance deal wants gain. Usually a subject to seller has pain, and a seller finance deal wants gains. And they're going to want that $199,900 if they are trying to give you essentially an interest-free loan for their equity. Hopefully that makes a little sense, because it's going to be a hard sell. I mean, it doesn't hurt. You can just send an offer, to be honest with you. But it's going to be unlikely for someone to agree to a 0% interest loan for only 5% down. Yeah, they would have to be really motivated, and their home probably needs to sit on the market for a little bit. You probably want to see this property was listed. Yeah, this property was only listed for 8 days. So we can come back to this property in about 60 days and see if they do any price drops. And if you ever see a price drop, then you can potentially offer the seller finance deal at the equity portion, because then that would have meant that they know that they cannot get the $199,900 that was originally listed for, because there still needs to be some sort of reality that needs to set in with the seller on this deal. So great question. I'm glad I talked through that scenario with you, Brandon. All right, awesome. So this was Tuesday. Good stuff. Thanks for analyzing deals with me. Again, everybody, thank you so much for caring about affordable housing. Seriously, without people like you, I would have never had a home I grew up in. So thank you so much for caring about it. Thank you for putting in the work with me every single day. I hope you guys copy exactly what I'm doing and put this on your own YouTube channel. Make sure you put all the disclaimers in there. Again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments. I'm just doing the work every single day alongside all of you, and I have a lot of fun doing this. And I love talking to folks, and I love talking about real estate. So thank you so much, everybody. Have an amazing Tuesday, and I'll be back here again tomorrow.